Welcome to BUS 3410, friends. Appreciate you being back with us. We're going to continue the conversation about the interview. Again, our guests are Lauren Schuller and Bree McCurdy from Unum, CJ Evans from Tennessee Valley Federal Credit Union, Peyton Janney from Bellhop, and Catherine Gartrell. She oversees the internship programs and entry-level hiring for Mohawk Industries. Again, you're going to need your course reader with you as we continue our journey through our common interview questions. So please go ahead and grab this if you don't already have it and have it in front of you. Turn to the page for your 20 common interview questions worksheet. We're going to keep working on questions 11 through 20, and today we're also going to be doing question 7. So we're doing a little backtracking to talk about salary. I wanted to make sure that we took some special care with that question, as it is one that tends to screw things up for students sometimes. So let's go ahead and start the conversation there. When should salary be discussed? So when someone asks you what kind of salary you need, it can be a tough question to answer. I'm going to go back a couple of pages to the 20 common interview questions and smart ways to respond advising sheet. So just 2 pages back from our worksheet to look at the advice that I provide for question number 7. What kind of salary do you need? This is a loaded question and a thorny game that you will likely use if you answer first. So try not to answer it. Instead, consider discussing how the experience this opportunity offers is the main compensation you are seeking. Or if you want the conversation to unfold, try, what is the pay range someone with my skill set and degree could expect for this position? In some cases, the interviewer will tell you. If not, say it can depend on the details of the job and ask if you can discuss at a later stage in the interviewing process so you more fully understand the responsibilities of the position. If you are pressed, be sure you have done your research on appropriate salaries and give about a $7,000 pay range that makes sense for your lifestyle, your experience, your location, and the position. You can use salary.com and the Bureau of Labor Statistics to research. Glassdoor.com is another place to do some research, but I have been told by recruiters recently that the salaries listed there are sometimes much higher than what they actually provide. So let's hear from our recruiters about the topic of salary.
Generally, it is closer right around that offer time.
Mm-hmm.
And when it comes down to it, it's really, is it more about the salary or the position? What are you looking for? What's more important to you?
Right.
And if the salary is the first thing out of your mind, then, I'm thinking you come in, you're going to be on Glassdoor, LinkedIn, and you see a higher paying job, you may be out of here in a month.
Yeah, I would definitely say first interview is not the time, for sure. If you think about it, interviewing is kind of like dating a little bit. You're not on your first date with someone going to be like, so how many kids do you want? And tell me all about, you're not going to do that, right? So salary is really something that you want to talk about, when you get closer to that offer process. And I think it's really important to think about interviewing as the beginning steps of relationship building. I think that students and candidates are looking for companies that have their best interests at heart. And we're looking for the same thing. We want candidates who have our company's best interests at heart. And so if you're just in it for a paycheck, you're not going to be my favorite candidate.
Right. Not convinced.
As noted from our guests, asking about benefits, salary, time off, etc. during a first interview simply sends the wrong message. Are you going to be curious? Well, yes, of course you are. Well, this may all be a waste of time if you're seeking $50K and they can't go higher than $35K, right? Well, the answer is no, actually. Even when you have to say no to an offer, the experience is good. You've created a network at a company. You've built some champions there, perhaps, and had some awesome job hunting practice. What you need to do, again, is focus on proving your worth and making a connection. The details will come in time, and you can often actually take yourself out of the running or undersell yourself when you talk about benefits too early. So focus on the important content and worry about the package after they know that you are the best candidate. This also puts you in the best place to negotiate. So our friends told us a bit about what their thoughts were, but when we think about this question, we really want the candidate to be realistic. So are you in the price range? And really, for entry level, this is the main question. Is she more excited about a career launch she is passionate about, or simply a paycheck. And you heard our guests talk about that as well. So let's go on to the next question. Question 11, have you ever been asked to leave a position? So for this one, we want to keep it short and sweet. So if you look at our advising sheet, you'll see on question 11, I write, if you have not, say no. If you have, be honest, but be brief and avoid saying negative things about yourself, the people, or the organization involved. You've got to find the positive spin on this one. And it's kind of hard to do sometimes. So you can talk with me, you can talk with another career advisor, and we can sort of help you figure out what would be the positive spin on this. But in the interviewer's brain, they're asking, has this person legitimately botched a previous role? We all make mistakes, we all have failures. But if there's a pattern of bad decision making, for instance, they want to avoid hiring someone like that. So go ahead and write down a quick answer to number 11. Question number 12, what is your greatest strength? A follow-up question may be, tell me about a time when this professional strength made the difference between success and failure. Numerous answers are good, just stay optimistic and truthful. A few good examples might be the ability to prioritize, the ability to work under pressure, solving problems or focusing on projects, perhaps professional expertise, leadership skills, a positive attitude, reporting skills. This is all very personal, but be able to prove your reply with a good star story, okay? And we have some advice from Peyton about strengths, so let's hear from her now.
Yeah, I think just knowing your value and your worth, really what you can bring to a company, as I mentioned earlier, know what your strengths are. You don't have to be good at everything, but this is really your chance to sell. I think that a lot of people are uncomfortable talking about themselves, especially in a way that might feel like they are being arrogant or prideful. But really, this is your chance. You might have, 30 minutes, you might have an hour to, convince me that you're the right person for this job. But with that, be yourself.
So in the interviewer's brain, they want to ask a couple of questions here. So first, what does this person consider to be their best attribute, and would it help her do well in this role and in this company? Again, whenever there's any conversation happening in an interview, it's always going to come back down to this job and this company. So we want to make sure we're presenting the attributes that make sense. Very often they will ask you for a star story to back this up because they want to make sure that you're not just saying something that you think they want to hear. So be prepared to provide evidence of this strength, okay? So go ahead and pause here and give us an answer for what is your greatest strength, and jot down some ideas about a good star story that would back that up. Okay, question number 13. What kind of person do you not like to work with? Okay, this one is an interesting question because I think we all have an answer to that, right? But going to my advice here, do not display pettiness in your answer. It should take disloyalty to the organization, violence, or criminal behavior to get you to refuse to work with a colleague. Minor objections may label you as a whiner. So don't be trivial, lengthy, or overly negative in your response. Instead, focus on discussing your ability to value diverse approaches, see challenges as opportunities, and work well with others. What we are trying to get at here is, are we going to be hiring someone whose attitude will make our workplace better or drag it down? So I know I would definitely prefer to hire someone who is low maintenance, be able to work with other people, and work around problems rather than refuse to work through them. Okay, so write down a quick answer to question number 13 in your worksheet, please. Question number 14 is a great question. You heard in the last class some recruiters talk about this question. So tell me about a time when you had an idea to improve a process. They are looking to see that you can do 4 things, okay? So first, that you take enough ownership to even think about improvements. Second, that you can think creatively and that you can challenge norms, okay? 3, that you can present ideas and enhancements to others with emotional intelligence. So not a bull in a china shop sort of approach, but doing things in a way that make people want to work with you on a solution. And then 4, they can consider the risks of change. So a lot of people have a problem with change. Some people are a bit better about it than others. So it's really hard for people to hear about ideas to change. So you have to present your ideas in a way that makes other people want to work with you, as I've already mentioned, but also that you've taken the time to evaluate, is this change worth it? So that's something that you'll want to make sure gets presented in your STAR story, okay? What we want to hear and what's going through our brains is that proactive and engaged employees are hard to find, and they're the best. So first off, does this person care enough about what she's involved with to brainstorm improvements? Secondly, are her ideas well thought through? Third, does she approach change through deliberate collaboration that mitigates risks, or does she rush in foolhardy? Finally, did she examine the results after implementation to determine if the idea was actually valuable? This is one of these questions that a lot of college students fumble through. This is one that you're going to want to pause here and actually brainstorm a good STAR story on, because you'll very likely be asked this question or some version of this question in your interview. So please pause here and give yourself some time to really think through this one, okay? Question 15, tell me about a time you had a problem with a supervisor. This is a test. And we're going to hear from our guests in just a moment about this exact topic. If you fall for it and start tearing up an old boss, you have failed. So stay positive and either reply that you have not had any trouble with a supervisor, if that's the case, or provide a short STAR story about how you constructively worked to solve the problem and how your relationship was strengthened as a result. You want to focus on that happy result, okay? So in our brains, we are thinking, before we hire this person, I want to know how her relationships with other managers have gone. We don't want to hire someone who might cause problems. And what will she be saying about me down the road? So let's hear a little bit more from our guests on this topic.
Never talk bad. Even if maybe you had an issue with the employer, just say, maybe the role just wasn't a good fit or something. Lauren, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I would say exactly. I think the only bad thing, especially for students, that you can say there is, talking negative about your previous employer. If you say, oh, well, my manager just always got on to me and I I had to be right on time, every day, things like that. That's yeah, yeah, exactly. That's what you're gonna have to do always. But if it's things like that, that's pretty much the only red flag.
Okay, pause here and write down a quick answer to this question on your worksheet. Question number 15. Question number 16 is another one of those that just takes a little bit of self-reflection. There's no wrong answers to this one, but what motivates you to do your best on the job? Or what do you expect from your employer is really another way of putting that. This is personal, so be accurate and honest, yet relevant to the job. But examples for motivation can be challenge, achievement, recognition, having a positive impact, helping others. Consider extending this topic if you want to determine a fit with this potential employer. So discuss your specific motivators and then ask if this type of motivation is offered through the role. What's going through our interviewers' brains are, what do I need to do to inspire and encourage this person if I hired her? And can I fulfill those needs in order to keep her on the staff? They're always thinking about retention when they're hiring. They don't want you leaving in a few months because that's a lot of wasted training hours. So we want to make sure that this is a good fit. So go ahead and pause here and just think about a couple of answers that you might give. Okay, question 17. Do you have any blind spots or weaknesses? I really dislike this question, but unfortunately some people still use it. You're going to find, though, that there's already people who are doing a variation on this question. Like they'll ask you questions like, what doesn't energize you about your previous jobs, things like that. In any case, they will probably ask you some version of this question. You should be ready for it. Catherine talks about this question I think in a very good way. So I'm going to go ahead and let her take the floor for a second before we get into my advice.
I think one of the greatest things that one of my mentors ever said to me was, don't worry about your weaknesses. We're not going to worry about those. Let's focus on your strengths and pour gasoline on those, because so many people spend so much time trying to make their weaknesses better that they don't realize they have all these natural gifts and abilities that if they just continue to pour gasoline on those things, they would be absolutely phenomenal. We build teams on purpose to fill areas of weakness. So one person on this team is good at this, and we're hiring you because you are going to fit well into this team to fit this area that we're missing. So definitely don't stress out and focus on what your weaknesses are. I know a lot of candidates get nervous about that question about what's your greatest weakness, and you can definitely answer it and own it. Like one of the things that I really hate is if I were to ask that question, the candidate would be like, well, I'm not great at this, but this is my, and they just kind of like stumble around it. And like, I'm not great at detail. I'm not detail oriented, but I am awesome at relationships and I do really well in conversation. And that's what makes me a good recruiter. And so let's talk about that.
Yeah.
And so there's a fine line between being confident and being cocky. So be careful of that. I really hate talking to new grads who are cocky. Listen, you just graduated, calm down. But I love talking to new grads who are like, yeah, this is what I learned. This is what I'm good at. I'm excited to learn more. Great.
Okay, so my advice that I provide through our advising sheet is this. This is a tricky question. You don't want to reveal personal areas of concern, but focus instead on how you want to grow professionally. In discussing weaknesses, focus on the but. So, for instance, in the past, I have put a lot of pressure on myself, but I have been overcoming this as my skills sharpen and my challenges lessen. So, we want to think about where areas where you've already improved or things that you're already working on for yourself. In the interviewer's brain, though, we want to make sure that, people are not giving us a lame answer on this. Like when people say things like, oh, I'm too much of a perfectionist, it's a very eye-rolling moment. Everyone is human. Everyone has things that they need to work on. And that's a lot of what we try to hire for is people who are authentic and people who know where they need to improve. So don't be afraid to share a little bit about the things that you're working on for yourself. Where people can screw this question up is that they get really personal about it. So, like they will start talking about how they experience a great amount of anxiety. They may talk about medical issues that they have. They may start talking about personal, like family issues. And it's a very uncomfortable moment as a recruiter to hear those types of answers. So just be careful with the way that you're answering this. Go ahead and take a moment to write down a couple of professional blind spots that you'd be willing to discuss in the interview. Question 18, tell me about a time when you had to analyze several solutions to make a sound decision. Okay, this is another question that you may not get this exact question, but you're very likely going to get this question in a first interview. And another one where entry-level candidates do not have good star stories. This is one of those questions that indicates your level of critical thinking. Critical thinking is one of the main characteristics to leadership. And so if you want to put yourself in a place where people are looking at you with an eye on your potential for the next few years, you want to really nail this question. So question 18 on your advising sheet, this is what I say. This question dives into the ability to create a framework for strategic thinking and proves you have a set process to make good decisions. Tell a star story where the situation was at least somewhat complex. So that's one of the biggest issues that people have here, is that they give too simple a situation. So make sure that it's somewhat complex and that you can give specifics on the pros and cons that you assessed, the sources of information that you tapped into, the information that you gathered and how you organized that information, and the insights that you came to in order to make your well-reasoned conclusion. Okay? So this one is going to take a lot of unpacking because when you think about it, complex situations don't come up all the time. So you want to find a complex situation that's appropriate to share in a professional setting. In the interviewer's brain, she's asking, how does her brain work? Is she strategic, well-organized, and discerning in her thinking? Can she paint me a clear picture of how she ticks? And if she doesn't have an answer ready, she's probably not a critical thinker or management material. So you definitely don't want to send that message. So please be ready with a good story. Pause here and brainstorm about some star stories that you can share that really express your ability to do some strong critical thinking. Number 19, how do you stay organized? Attending to details, planning, organizing, and prioritizing takes skill. Talk about how you manage your life or work through specific methods, as well as the tools you use. This is where a lot of people screw up. They focus only on their tools, and they'll talk about how they keep a color-coded journal and things like that. But you have to go deeper. What are your methods for prioritizing things? So you can even provide a star story here that speaks to how these qualities led to a success at some point in your career or education. This one shouldn't take too long, but in the interviewer's brain, we're thinking we need someone who can take ownership and stay on top of her work. How does she make decisions about her priorities? How seriously does she pay attention to the details? What tools can she use proficiently? And how resourceful is she? So even though it's a sort of a short question and one that you can answer within just a moment or two, you want to make sure that you're nailing down not just the tools that you use, but your decision-making processes, okay? So take a moment to think through these questions specifically and write them down on your worksheet for number 19. All right, last question. What questions do you have for me? Okay, now interviewing should go both ways. You should have about 3 to 5 good questions ready to ask so you can gather the information you need to make a well-formed decision on this job. These questions should be informational in nature and allow you to understand the position and the company better while reinforcing your interest and your enthusiasm. This is not a good time to talk about benefits, salary, etc. That information will come in time. Having no questions is seen as a sign of disinterest. So please be ready. I asked our guest about what questions they like candidates to ask at the end of their interviews, and I have some of their thoughts compiled here.
What are some of the good questions that people have for you at the end of interviews that you think, now that's a person I want to pay attention to, and they're asking smart questions?
I always like it when a candidate asks me, how long have you been here? What has kept you here? What are your favorite things about the company? What are your favorite things about your job or your department? They are actually trying to dig in deeper, get some below the surface level. What is it that keeps people here? What is the culture?
Had a conversation with someone yesterday, and they had pulled up my LinkedIn profile, and we're like, okay, it looks like you've been with the company for this amount of time. Since you've been there, how has your perspective of the company changed since you've been with the team? What things have you learned since working for Bellhop? And I felt that was a really thoughtful question. They were interested in me from looking me up as the interviewer, which is always interesting. But I think if they are asking specific questions about the company, where you see the company going next year, next quarter, things that are a little bit more forward thinking, I think those are always good questions to ask.
Yeah, I love the questions for recruiters specifically because I think it shows that you're interested in the company culture and you want to try and get that inside scoop, but also it shows that you have soft skills too, right? Like I said, kind of like dating a little bit, you're building a relationship. And so part of that means getting to know the person that you're talking to as well. I think a lot of times candidates get so nervous for interviews that they just totally flunk them because they're so like, they just don't know what to do. And if you just think about it as, I'm just having a conversation. I'm just getting to know this person. I'm just getting to know this company. Like, it's not an end all be all. Like, you're just starting off. So showing some of those soft skills, showing that you can be relational, those questions are really good. And then I also love questions about the company because it shows that, yeah, you did your research and you're interested in where a company is going and how to help us get there. So both kinds of questions are good questions to ask at the end.
So I think having 3 questions is a really good starting point. It's always challenging at the end of an interview where I ask, do you have any questions for me? And they say, no, I think you covered everything. There's no way that I covered everything in 30 minutes.
No.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it does sort of make you feel, it makes you feel like you're Like, so are we going to go out again? Are we?
Right. Exactly.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
Kathy-
asking this is one of my favorite questions that candidates ask, actually, is what are the next steps? Like, because then how do you know at the end of an interview if you got the job, if you're going to the next step or not? Like, just like, meeting someone for the first time, hey, when are we going to hang out again? Or I really enjoyed this. Like, it was so wonderful to talk to you today. Like, thank you so much for interviewing me. What are the next steps in this process? That's an excellent question to end an interview on.
It also gives that social cue of, my questions are done. You can wrap it up now. Like, yeah, it's gracious. I like that.
All right, well, you heard it from them. Here's what I think people are really thinking about when we talk about this question. So first, if you have questions, I wonder where she's focusing her questions, getting information to determine if this is the right job and company for her now and in the future. Does it still sound like she's really interested? Did she do some deep dive research on us, etc.? Or will she ask superficial questions, best left to a conversation with HR? Even worse, will she be so disinterested and not ask questions? That is so awkward. And you heard that from our recruiters. You really should have some questions ready to ask so that you can extend the conversation. So go ahead and write down some ideas for questions that you might ask at the end of an interview. Okay, friends, at the bottom of your worksheet, you're going to see a little section for star stories. This little chart at the bottom can help with understanding what are your most important stories that you want to bring out in an interview. So think through these stories, and if you start to think about it, these situations, these star stories can be applied to different types of interview questions based on what you want to highlight about each story. So unpacking your stories is probably some of the best pre-interview work that you can do. Okay, having those in your back pocket will make it so that you're not so nervous when the questions arrive. And also, like I said at last class, you can jot down just the title of a star story in your Padfolio when you go in to meet the folks in the interview room, and that will help the conversation go a little bit better, and it'll sort of take some of the pressure off for you.
Where do you see interviews go poorly? You've spoken a little bit about, the lack of research is a big one for you all, and having an arrogant versus a confident attitude. What other places do you see interviews fail?
I hate repeatedly getting 1 or 2 word responses. They just cut themselves off. You have to keep trying to drag the information out of them. I'm giving you the opening. Show me what you've got. Don't make me keep pulling that out of you.
I've got 2 areas that tend to go a little bit sideways. So I think that if the candidate doesn't have respect for the recruiter, they're looking for, the next stage. Okay, when am I meeting with the manager? When am I meeting with other people from this team? I like to remind candidates they are the person who really has the power to send you through to the next stage. And without that person's, approval, you are not getting through the door. So I think that not having respect for the recruiter is a really a poor area. And then when hearing about the comp range, so I think that compensation, there are some people who really just, close future opportunities by responding poorly to a number. I think that, being open-minded when it comes to comp expectations or having that conversation, you never know if another opportunity will open up that is more in your experience level, but you have a strong no hire attached to your name in our system.
I got you.
Yeah, I would agree with Peyton. I think having respect for the recruiter is really important. One of the things that I'm assessing in conversations, I recruit for every single group in our company. So I'm recruiting finance, engineering, design. And so I have to be know a little bit about a lot of things.
Right.
And so if I'm talking to an engineering person and I'm trying to assess their skills in AutoCAD and C++ and things like that, and they treat me like I'm an idiot and I don't know what I'm talking about, I'm not, like, just have respect for me. And I may not know all of the intricate details of your major and what you've done, but at the same time, I know how business runs. So yeah, treat me with that respect.
5 little things that you're in complete control of. Always show up for an interview early. Always be nice and respectful to the receptionist, because little do they know when she calls me telling me that my person's here for an interview, I'm asking her, how are they dressed? How did they act? Are they polite? Another one is definitely do your homework on the company. And then again, just be confident in your responses.
Love it. Good synopsis.
As far as qualifications go when they're applying, I guess advice I give is if there's 10 requirements, meet 8 of them. And then those other 2 bullet points that you don't currently have, that's really what you're going to learn at that company, and that's the growth piece. So I think that if somebody isn't fully qualified for a position as they're applying, that's okay. That means you have something to learn at that company in that role. But have 80% of the qualifications. So I think that that's also a good rule of thumb.
So let me check in with CJ and Catherine about that. Do you both agree?
Sure.
80% is what is a qualifying number for applying for a job?
Definitely. If I see somebody's got, 8 out of the 10 skills that we're looking for, depending on what those other 2 are, generally, we can teach you that. That's not a big deal. Give me 80% and show me the willingness to learn those other 2.
Love it. Catherine, same for you?
Yeah, you're always going to have a learning curve when you're starting a new job. It doesn't matter if you're staying in the same industry or changing companies, you're going to have to learn the new way that the new company does things. So I wouldn't be worried if you don't match every single qualification, for sure, because you can always learn, and you're always going to have to learn anyways.
Okay. So in preparation for the interview, so that 80% that you can fit, do you expect them to have stories ready to go on how they meet those qualifications?
If you've only got 80% of those requirements, let me know that you are confident in that 80% that you do have. Let me know that you know what you're talking about when you say, I can do this, this, and this. Back it up.
Back it up. Love it.
If you're authentic in your responses, I will be able to determine if this is a good fit for you, if this is the right team, if this is an environment that would set you up for success. So be authentic. The recruiter knows more about the company clearly, and so just trust that if that opportunity doesn't present itself to you, that was probably a good thing. You might not have been happy at that company anyway. So just be yourself and focus on your strengths.
I just feel like college students get so nervous, and especially, right now, life can just get super crazy. And so being able to just say, keep at it. It takes a long time to find a job. And so don't be stressed out if you filled out 3 or 4 applications and you haven't heard anything back. You're probably going to apply to 50 jobs. And if you haven't applied to 50 jobs, you should, because it takes a long time, and you want to find the fit that's right for you. Don't just accept your first offer just because it's your first offer. You have value, you are worthy, and you have things that you can add to a company. And so be willing to be picky, and yeah, you can do it. It's going to be great.
I love you, Catherine. You're awesome.
Okay, friends, we had an abbreviated class today. I know that sometimes I run a few minutes extra, so I thought I would give you all a chance to duck out a little earlier today. So I hope you enjoyed that. We have some homework to discuss, though, before I let you go. What you're going to be doing this week is preparing for your mock interview and also signing up for one. So let's take a look at that assignment. As we saw in the resume review signups, this is a now or never assignment. There is a strict deadline, and signups will close at midnight on the 7th of March. There's no submission for this assignment, but again, just like resume reviews, this is the first step to earning a mock interview scorecard, which is worth significant points in this class. Please read through this link when you sign up. So you'll click here, and you're going to read all of these instructions to understand how this event will work. It's going to be very similar to what happened for resume reviews. Okay? Just like resume reviews, you will sign up for an individual who makes sense for your career path, and you will have a chance to do your mock interview with them during the period of March 8th through March 19th. Please be sure to read through those details fully. To prepare for this, you're going to use the common interview question advising sheet and the worksheet to prepare. So hopefully all that work has been done through the course of these past 2 class sessions. But you're also going to do some research into interview questions for the specific job titles and field you are targeting. So we have been going over common interview questions that would apply to any entry-level position. If you, for instance, are interested in a financial analysis position, you're going to actually go online and do some searching for entry-level financial analysis interview questions. There's going to be some great resources that pop up. For instance, Glassdoor comes to mind, where you can read through those specific questions and start thinking about how you would prepare to answer those. The way that I would suggest that you prepare is to write down those interview questions and write down your answers. We know from psychology that this is the best way to retain information, is to write out responses. You're also going to brainstorm at least 4 robust STAR stories. Again, we're looking for situation, task, action, and result to work into your interviews, okay? So we are looking for robust and significant replies in your mock interview. So go write out those stories, practice your replies, and be ready for the mock interviews, which will occur in a couple of days. I want to quickly turn back to our recruiters for a message about the importance of mock interviews.
Go to them, do a mock interview. That's
Yes.
the biggest thing. Practice makes perfect.
Prepare.
Practice is a noun and a verb.
Yeah.
I'll also remind you that your quiz is going to be closing on March 7th. Thanks so much. Have a wonderful week, and I will see you soon. Reach out if you need anything. Thank you.